Okay, so we're back for part 2 of our lesson, and that is the associative property. I went ahead and kind of wrote everything down to save some time on the video, so the videos aren't quite so long, because I know you can just pause it and copy and then unpause it. So this is actually kind of nice for those of you who need a little extra time writing things down. So the associative property. So let's talk about that one. We did commutative. Associative, basically the key word here that we want to think of is group. So remember on the commutative property, the word that we talked about was change. It's like changing locations. I commute to work and then I commute home. Associate is kind of like the group. So think of this as like, who's the group of people you associate with? Like, who are the people you hang out with or associate with the most or have the most in common with? So what group do you associate with the most? So we're going to be looking at how numbers are grouped when we're talking about the associative property. Okay, we're not going to change the order that they're in. We're going to just group them differently. And remember, we learned in our GEMS that G stands for grouping symbols. So when we're using parentheses or brackets or absolute value marks, any of those grouping symbols, this is when the associative property is going to come into play. So there's two again. It's addition and multiplication. Again, does not work for subtraction, does not work for division. Both the commutative and the associative property only apply to addition and multiplication. So highlight that, star it, do whatever you need to do to make your journal pretty. Like I don't have all my fun markers. I need to do that. But you might want to just like really make sure that you know that it's just for those two. Okay, so we're going to write a couple of definitions. Okay, so for the associative property of addition, we're going to say that means that changing, I should have wrote these ahead of time, but that's okay. Changing the grouping, okay, of numbers, what do you think I might write next? Will not change the sum. Very similar to the commutative property definition. Will not change the sum. Did I leave out a word? I do that a lot in school. Remember, addition is sum. Changing the grouping of numbers will not change the sum. So here's our example with variables, and then we'll do some examples with numbers. So my example with variables is going to be A plus B plus C is equal to A plus B plus C. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. The commutative property was about the order that they're in, right? The location, changing location. Right now they're in order A, B, C. Are they still in order A, B, C? Yes, I did not do anything to change their location. However, in this first one, my grouping symbol was grouping B and C together. But in the equivalent expression, I am grouping A and B together. So I'm just grouping the numbers differently. Okay, so these B and C are kind of not associated with A right now. They're like, whatever, I don't know why they wouldn't associate with them. We don't want to be mean. Whatever, maybe they didn't get a chance to shower yet. No, I'm just joking. Anyway, but over here now A and B are not associating with C, and they're making C really sad. So you guys don't do this to each other, but I'm just being silly. So let's try this with actually putting some numbers in and see if it makes sense. Okay, so let's say, what if I put in that this A is a 3? What if I did this A or 3 plus 4 plus 2? Okay, would that be equivalent to 3 plus 4 plus 2? Well, let's think about it. Isn't 4 plus 2, because if I did order of operations, I'd do grouping symbols first, right? 4 plus 2 is 6. And then 3 more is 9, right? But if I did this one, I do these two first. 4 plus 3 is 7, and 2 more is 9. So they're both equivalent. I just grouped them differently, and it really doesn't matter. You're going to get the same order because of the associative property of addition, okay? Let's see. Should I do one more example here? Let's do one more. What if I did, let's do one with a variable. What if I did 7 plus 4 plus 9h. Okay, what's another way I could write this with the associative property? Well, I could do 7 plus 4 plus 9h. So then later, if I needed to go back and say, insert, what if h was just a 1? Okay, then it would just be, you multiply this first inside the parentheses, and then you would add 9 plus 4 is 13, and 7 is 20. Same thing would be over here. I would add 7 and 4 and get 11, and if h was a 1, this is still a 9. 11 and 9 is 20. So they are equivalent. All we're doing is changing their grouping symbol, okay, the group, okay? Okay, so what about the associative property of multiplication? It's exactly the same as addition, but we're going to apply it to multiplication. So again, we're going to write changing the grouping. What do you think is going to be different in this definition of numbers? Some of you are answering out loud, and you're correct. Some of you are answering out loud, and maybe you're not correct. I don't know. I'm just teasing. Will not change the product. Yes, correct. Whoever it was that just raised their hand and said that, well done. Because it's multiplication, and multiplication gives me products, okay? So I'm being silly, but trying to have a little bit of fun. So this one's going to be A, or its example, times B times C is equal to A times B times C. What? That's a lot of A, B's, and C's. Okay, but again, remember, we're not worried about the order. A, B, and C is still the order they appear in. A, B, and C is still the order they appear in. But this time, B and C are associated with each other, and A is outside on its own. And over here, A and B are associated with each other, and C is out here on its own. So again, we could fill it in with some numbers. Let's just use 2 times 3 times 4. Okay, and then I would do 2 times 3 times 4. So let's see if that really works. 3 times 4 is 12, times 2 is 24. And on this side, 2 times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24. So they're both equivalent, they're both equal to 24. And just for funsies, let's see, I don't think I have a good one to throw in with a variable in it. How about this one? Let's do 6 times 8x time. Now I'm going to use a dot here. Why am I using a dot here? Because it looks weird to have an x and another x for multiplication signs. So you're going to see the dot used a lot. I should be using it more often, honestly. So now I'm going to reassociate it, and I'm going to do 6, and I'm going to use my dot this time because I have 8x in here, and I don't want to get all my x's confused. So all I did was I changed this to a dot. Okay, times 3. And I could use a dot here as well, but since it's outside the parentheses. So you can see where the dot comes in really handy, because with all these x's, it gets really confusing. So you're going to see that most of the time in multiplication in algebra, or just the variable, the number, the constant, and a variable. Okay, so on the next page, so if we have all this jotted down, on the next page, I already wrote the problems ahead of time to save time, so you don't have to watch me write them. So pause the video, copy these down, okay? And then when you're done writing, well, I'll do the first one for you. Again, this is just the associative property. You're going to generate an equivalent expression. So I could rewrite this as 5 plus 6 plus 9. Pay attention to some are addition and some are multiplication. Don't get yourself all messed up there. Okay, so hit pause, solve the rest of these, and when you're done, come back. Okay, so you hit unpause, so I'm assuming you're done. So let's go over these and make sure that you've got them correct. So this time I'm going to do 3 times 7 times 10. Okay, and this one, it would be 8x plus, so this one was multiplication. I'm back to addition, so pay close attention to that, to 5y plus 2z. Okay, this one's multiplication again. So I'm going to do 12 times 12 in the parentheses and then multiply it by 8 outside the parentheses. This time, these guys are in the parentheses, and this time I'm going to leave negative 9 out here by itself. And I'm going to put 5 and 1 inside the parentheses. And then this one is addition. So I'm going to put 4 and 33 together this time. And this time we're going to leave 5f out all by himself. Okay, so that's the associative property. So I'm going to stop this, and we'll do one more page with the identity property. Okay, see you in a sec.